Beauty and freedom to everyone. I am the Technomage and welcome back to The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power review. This time, episode 4. And, at least on this episode, the story has some progression. At least. But everything else is as dumb as always. So let's get to it. Today's episode opens with in Númenor with the Queen participating in some kind of ceremony with some women of Númenor and their children. They are celebrating the new lives of Númenor. But this ceremony is interrupted when an enormous tidal wave sweeps the city, destroys everything, kills everyone and the Queen. And that is the end of Númenor. Oh wait, no, it's just a dream. What really is happening in the city right now is that the guildsmen that Halbrand attacked 2 episodes ago, or last episode, I think, yes, last episode, is rising up the people and because he's accusing the Queen of being a friend of elves and bringing back the elves to Númenor, and he warns the people that the elves will come to Númenor and take our gifts!
They took our gifts!
And all the people agree with him. They accuse the Queen of being an elf lover, but luckily the Queen's minister was among the crowd and he manages to defuse the situation without further incidents. Oh, and his son is trying to pork Elendil's daughter. Meanwhile, the Galadriel is having an audience with the Queen, and she's explaining her findings at the Númenorian library about what he found about Sauron's sigil and the sigil that Halbrand carries, which identifies him as the lost king of the Southlands. But the Queen doesn't believe her too much, and she jokes that if Halbrand is the lost king of Southland, then Elendil is a runic emperor, and Elendil answers with a joke of his own, and the Queen looks him and tells him to shut up, because how dare you men make jokes when I'm making jokes. Well, anyway, the Queen dismisses Galadriel, says that she won't listen to her, and Galadriel says, well, if you won't listen to me, I will talk directly to your father, the real king of Númenor, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. So the Queen stops her. Sorry about that. Oh, and Elendil's son got kicked out of the Sea Guards and dragged 2 of his friends with him. And back with Arondir, we finally see Adars, the mysterious orc leader, face, and is it just me, or he looks like Skrillex? So they start a conversation, and Arondir asks Adar why the orcs call him father, because apparently Adar is father in Elvish. And Adar answers that you have told so many lies that even if I explain you who I am, you wouldn't believe me. And then he tells him, I'm going to release you so you can go to the watchtower and deliver a message to the men that have taken refuge there. So, in said watchtower, more and more people of the Southlands are arriving to the watchtower seeking refuge from the orcs, and the people are getting really worried because they are running out of food. They don't have enough to feed everyone. So Theos, Bronwyn's son, offers himself to go to Waldrek's root cellar to fetch the food that was stored there. You remember, it's the place where he found Sauron's sword hilt. And his mother says no, it's too dangerous and whatnot, but he goes anyway and he drags his friend with him. they found the food and they are returning, but Theo has the genius idea of separating from his friend and go inside the bar to look for more food, but a cloud starts blocking the sun, and as you remember, the orcs are afraid of the sun because the sun burns them, so the friends starts running away from the darkness and leaves Theo behind. And one of the orcs that was still at the village finds Theo and tries to kill him, but Theo takes out Sauron's sword hilt and stabs himself with. If you can see here, you see that the hilt has some kind of fork at the end of it. Well, with that fork, he stabs himself in the arm. The sword hilt absorbs his blood, and the sword starts to rebuild itself. And Theo uses the sword to wound the orc and goes outside and hides in the water well, while the rest of the orcs look for him. Meanwhile, back in London, elves and dwarves are starting to build Celebrimbor's tower. And we have this weird little scene right here. I found it very odd. You see, Celebrimbor looks at Elrond in the window and he kind of smiles and let out a little sigh. And he says, "For a moment, standing there, you were the very image of your father." And I say it's an odd scene because, as I said, he likes look at him and lets out a sigh, and he has this look of longing on his face. So I'm wondering, in future episodes or maybe on the next season, are they going to drop the bomb that Elrond's father and Celebrimbor were kind of an item or something? I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe I'm reading too much into this. So anyway, they continue their conversation, and Celebrimbor tells Elrond that he feels that Prince Durin is avoiding him and hiding something from him. So Elrond goes to, "Hey, Disa, nice, we will have more dwarves on this episode." So Elrond goes to Durin's house and asks Disa where is Durin because he can't find him anywhere. And Disa tells him that Durin is busy with another work and he will be back soon. And Elrond feels that she's lying to him. So, and he's right, because then we see Disa talking with Durin, and they are talking about what Durin is actually doing, and Elrond managed to eavesdrop on their conversation with his, as Aragorn put it on the two towers, with his elf eyes, and he figures out that Durin is in the old mine below the Mirrormere. So he goes there and he finds a closed alley, and a closed shaft. But then he sees some footprints that lead straight to the wall, and then he remembers that when he was at Disa's house, he heard their children singing some kids song. So he starts tapping into the wall at the rhythm of the song, and the wall opens, and he finds a secret chamber where the dwarves have been mining something. And Durin finds him and he says, "Aha, so you were spying on me." And Elrond defends himself and says, "No, I'm not spying on you. You are the one that's hiding things from me." And Durin makes Elrond swear with the oath of the mountain or something like that he won't tell anyone about what he's about to tell him. And he reveals that they are mining mithril. Apparently, this is the first time this is the time where dwarves first encounter mithril, and they begin to mine it and to process it into weapons and armors that we like the ones we see in the Peter Jackson trilogy. And is Elrond the one who names it mithril, because mithril is Elvish for like glittering stone or something like that. But their conversation is interrupted because there's an accident. And Durin rushes into the site so he can rescue the 4 dwarves that were working down there. Meanwhile, the minister's son is still trying to get in bed with Elendil's daughter. Meanwhile, back in the prison cells, Halbrand tries to make Galadriel see the error of her ways, that she's just rushing into everything and pushing every obstacle in her way aside, and that is not the way to deal with this situation. And of course, Galadriel, being this warrior Galadriel, commander of the northern armies and whatnot, she only can think as a military commander, and she thinks that she has to exploit her enemy's weaknesses. And Halbrand tells her, no, you have to be more subtle, you have to have more patience, because when you arrived here in Numenor, you were really aggressive and really antagonistic, and the queen did nothing, but now you are here, so you must have done something that provoked the queen. And Galadriel realizes that it was when she mentioned that she was going to talk directly to the king. And Halbrand tells her, see what happens when you stop galloping and you give yourself a moment to think. Imagine that. A man, well, of course he is mansplaining to Galadriel, but he's actually right. But they are interrupted because the minister arrives with 4 guards and tells Galadriel that she will be shipped back to the elves under armed escort tonight. Of course, this is not what Galadriel wants, so when they open her cell, she attacks the guards. And yes, 4 armed guards and armored guards. So they have weapons, they have armor, and they are all big and tall and strong, and Galadriel is this petite, slim gal with just a dress, and she manages to kick everyone's arses. Like, seriously. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, wait, no. There's 2 here, there's 1 here, and I think the 4th one is around here. But look, they are wearing armor. Galadriel is barehanded and wearing just this dress, and she managed to fight, punch, kick everyone's arses. And she escapes. And then they show us this visual of this shot of the tower where the king is supposedly being held, and I think judging by the next scene, because Galadriel breaks a window and jumps inside the tower, I think she was climbing the tower, but I can see her from here. Anyway, she goes to the king and finally sees why nobody has seen the king in so long, and why the queen wouldn't give Galadriel an audience with the king, because the king is sick. He apparently is very old and very sick, and he's bedridden. And Galadriel says, please tell me the truth, why are you so afraid of me, why are you so afraid of the elves? And the queen agrees to tell her, and she shows her a palantir, one of the watching stones that we saw on the Peter Jackson trilogy, the one that Saruman had. Saruman had one of these, and she tells her that when the Númenóreans overthrew her father and elected her to be the new queen, the queen regent, she touched the Palantir and had a vision, which is the one that we saw at the beginning of the episode of Numenor being destroyed. So the Queen tells Galadriel to touch the Palantir, but she's about to warn her about something, and Galadriel retorts, "I have touched Palantiri before. Don't explain to me how Palantiri work." And the Queen answers, and this is quite funny, "But you have not touched this one." Because remember when Galadriel says, "You have not seen what I have seen." Well, now this is the Queen's turn to tell her that you have not seen what I have seen. And Galadriel touches the Palantir, and she sees the same vision of the tidal wave destroying Numenor. And Galadriel says that, "Look, I tries to sympathize, unquote, with the Queen, telling her, I know what it is to be the only one, to be right, and that nobody believes you. Everyone tells you that you're wrong, but you know you're right, and whatnot." And then tells her, "I beg you, Miriel, choose not the path of fear, please support me." And Galadriel, piss off, you don't sympathize with the Queen, you don't care about the Queen, you only care about what you want. You were trying to use the Queen's fear to make her rally under your banner, so piss off, Galadriel. Seriously. Back at the watchtower, the people are getting desperate because they have no food, but Theo's friend arrives with what took from the cellar, and Bronwyn asks him where is Theo, and he lies and says he said he will be right behind me. And Theo is sneaking around the town trying to get away from the orcs, and he thinks that he's ready, but no,
Snake, are you okay?
Arondir arrives like Protoman and saves him. And then we have this really boring scene of Theo and Arondir running from the orcs. The orcs are throwing arrows at them, and we have this scene that we saw on the trailer of the series of Arondir catching a arrow mid-air and then shooting it back to the orcs. And I say that this scene is boring because it's in slow motion. So we have no urgency. There's no urgency on this scene because since it's slow-mo, we can see perfectly everything that happened, and we can actually see the arrows flying across the screen, and that makes it boring because as I said, there's no urgency on this. If they have done it with at normal speed and maybe with a little bit of shaky camera in some shots, this would have been really exciting, but it's not. It was a wasted opportunity, and because of the slow-mo, we have to see Theo whining and crying because his leg is wounded. But they exit the forest, and they are met with Bronwyn, and just at that moment the sun rises, and the orcs finish the hunt. Meanwhile, Disa and the other rock singers, or no, how did Durin call it? The Resonators, yes, are singing the Halo theme song. And Elrond asks what was that, and she answered that it was like a prayer, a plea to the mountain to release the dwarves that are still alive and buried. And it seems that it works, because at that moment Durin arrives and says that everybody is alive. But immediately he is very angry because the king, his father, said that he was going to close the shaft where the mithril is, and he forbids Durin from continuing to mining the mithril. And he's very angry at his father, and he wishes that he never has to talk to him again. And then we have this actually really touching scene of Elrond reminding Durin that he lost his father, that his father ascended or something due to his services to the elves, or maybe he died during the war against Morgoth. But the thing is, Elrond tells her, I wish the opportunity to have one more conversation with my father, and don't waste what time you have left with yours. And as I said, it's a beautiful scene, actually. The Honestly, the best scenes on this series so far have been with the dwarves. We need a series just with Durin and Disa and the dwarves. Everything just in Casa Doom. So Durin takes Elrond's advice and he goes to apologize to the king. But the king says there is nothing to forgive. I love you, son. I know that you are a patriot, and I know that you are doing everything you are doing for the good of the dwarves, and I love you. And again, we have another really beautiful scene. And they continue with their conversation, and the king tells Durin that he feels that Elrond is hiding something, and Durin agrees. So the king gives Durin leave to accept Elrond's invitation of Durin going to London with him, probably to meet Celebrimbor. Then we got back to the Watchtower. Arondir, Bronwyn, and Theo managed to arrive safely to the Watchtower, and Arondir informs Bronwyn about Adar's message that you can leave if you swear fealty to me. And while they are talking, Theo is recovering from the wound on his leg, and he is playing with his precious bird is discovered by the old man of his village, the one that we have seen many times shopping fish, and the one that is always antagonizing Bronwyn. And he reveals that he has some scars on his arm, which are the same marks that Theo received on his arm when he stabbed himself with the sword hilt and provided it with his blood to rebuild it. And the old man reveals himself as a follower of Sauron, and tells Theo to save your strength, you will need it because Sauron is coming and we will serve him. And we got back to Adar, who is informed about the very same thing, that they have found the sword hilt and it's in the Watchtower with all the people. And back in Númenor, Galadriel is being shipped to the ship that will take her back to her people. And I'm going to take a few seconds to talk about this. I mentioned in previous episodes the horrendous, rubbish work of costume work on this series. I mean, seriously, look at this armor. If I'm not mistaken, this kind of armor is called this is not Brigandine. This is I don't remember the specific name, but this armor is supposed to be a padded shirt with metal rings sewn into it to serve as light armor or under armor. But look at this. This looks horrible. I mean, these are not metal rings. These are just stitches. And this armor, is this supposed to be some kind of scale armor? Because we can clearly see that this is not metal, this is leather. I mean, all of this is just leather, but it looks so cheap. Well, anyway, the queen is relieved that Galadriel is finally leaving Numenor, but then she sees that the petals of the sacred tree that is high up in Numenor's royal palace starts shedding its petals, and the air is filled with the petals, and she takes this as some kind of sign from the gods or something. So she decides to actually believe in Galadriel and informs her court that she will personally escort Galadriel back to Middle Earth, and they will help the peoples of the Southland. And Elendil gives the proclamation that they are going to war, and they take volunteers. And a lot of the people in the crowd, amongst with what was his name, Isildur, with an Isildur and his friends, the one who got kicked out the Sea Guard, they volunteered to go in this expedition. And by the way, did this really made it past post-production of this episode? Nobody thought that this was kind of weird. Nobody said, hey, this remind me of something. No, nobody. Okay. And we finished this episode with Galadriel, who is still not happy. Oh, piss off, Galadriel. You got what you wanted. You are going to Middle Earth and you got your army. Smile, woman, smile. So anyway, and that's the end of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, episode 4. And, well, at least, finally, this story is advancing. At least Galadriel got her army, and it seems that finally everybody is going to meet in the Southlands. We didn't have the Harfoots on this episode, but maybe they will appear on the next one, because they are on their migration, and maybe they will move further south or something, and Galadriel will meet with Theo, and with Arondir, and she will find the sword hilt, and maybe again she will also reunite with Elrond back in Lindon, and or was it London? This series is so boring that I'm not even bothering to remember the names. Maybe she will also reunite with Elrond, and we will find out if Celebrimbor's special project is actually the construction, the making of the 3 rings of power of the elves. But anyway, we had to deal with a lot of Galadriel's rubbish. So this, as I said, this is where the episode ends. This is episode 4 of The Rings of Power. So this is the Technomage signing off. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next episode. Goodbye.